Hey, what is going on, Grid? This is Project Fat alongside my host, Z-Star. We also have a special guest that we will get to later, but we are going to go ahead and get started here. This is the long time coming for the Lockdown podcast. It hasn't been around for a while. Star and I got together. We've kind of been talking about this, so we're really excited to get this podcast back up and running. I think this is a perfect time to get it going with the playoffs upon us, as well as the offseason and the most popular draft that we have coming up as well. How do you feel about it, Star?
I'm feeling great, man. It's a very exciting time here in the Grid. As you said, we got the playoffs for the last season. Well, actually, we have one more season coming up after this, but it's always exciting as a cycle's coming to an end, new games coming out. So, yeah, man, I'm excited.
Yeah, like you said, cycle's coming to an end, so, we'll be talking about team selection and things like that in some coming up episodes, so make sure you guys stay tuned for that as well. But first thing we're going to go ahead and talk about is we're going to go ahead and talk about the playoffs. We are in the Wildcard round of the playoffs, so we're going to go ahead and cover the matchups both from the AFC and the NFC. So first we're going to go ahead and start off with the NFC. We have the Buccaneers and the 49ers going against one another. The Buccaneers have been a pretty good team all year long. I mean, both of those teams have been. Obviously, they're in the playoffs. But the Bucs have definitely been a team that had a ton of potential to win their division as well. So that's going to be a very interesting matchup, and I think that it's going to come down to the wire, but I ultimately think that the Buccaneers, I think that they had, correct me if I'm wrong, Star, they had the MVP of the league in Darian McCree, and I think that he's going to be the difference in this game. How do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, shout out to Bananas for that excellent season he's had with McCree. I mean, he had almost 1,600 yards, broke Emmitt Smith's single-season touchdown record with 23. I mean, the guy's really balled out all season. But what makes this matchup pretty interesting to me is the Niners can really stop the run. So if they're really able to get ahead early, neutralize the run game, and have Bananas be a little bit one-dimensional, I think they could come away with the win here. But I think the Bucs get away with the win here late. They win by 6, I'll say.
Yeah, and that's a great point that you bring up, because obviously I think the secret to this Buccaneers offense is that running game, like you said. But you also mentioned that the Niners are very good at stopping it. So it's like I said, it's going to be an interesting game. It's going to be fun, probably one of the more interesting matchups of the wild card round. But like you said, I think the Buccaneers will come out on top as well. So to the other game in the NFC, we have the Rams and the Bears. And this one is also very interesting simply because these are two teams that are very good, had very good seasons once again. But the Rams speak highly to me simply because they are the defending champions here in the Grid from last season. And they're going to have to, they have a long road. They have to start from the wild card, as they did have a little bit more of a down season from last year. But like I said, they're the defending champions. I don't think they're going to go down easily. And once again, I think that the Rams, and I hate doing this because I picked both of the road teams so far, Buccaneers on the road against the Niners and the Rams in Chicago. But I think the Rams are going to be able to come out on top on that one as well. But like I said, I just think they have that winning pedigree, and I think that's really going to be the difference for them in this game. What do you think, Star?
Yeah, I mean, you really can't doubt the Rams. Like you said, they've performed on the big stage before and got the job done last season. And they're a very interesting team because they've battled injuries all year. I mean, for most of the year, they had their second-string quarterback in. He was playing well, but then slipped up a little bit, so they gave the third string a shot, and the third-string quarterback has been playing unreal ever since. But with that being said, I think I'm going to go with the Bears here. Like you said, it's hard to go away from home field advantage in the playoffs. If there's any kind of inclement weather, I think it'll be an advantage to the Bears, who are used to playing in that. In a very defensive game, I'm going to go with the Bears 17-13.
Okay, yeah, and like I said, it was hard for me to do. I just think that the Rams, with that championship under their belt, I think that they're going to be able to come out on top there. But to the next game, the Colts and the Titans. This one here, I'm going to have to go with the home team, the Tennessee Titans. They kind of had an interesting season as well as the Colts. Colts have had some issues in the front office within that team, and then the Titans had an interesting ownership change within the middle of the season. But since that ownership change, they've really rebounded well, have played better than they did previously. And with the home field over those Indianapolis Colts, I think that they are going to be the team to beat. And I think that this is probably going to be our most lopsided game. And not to take anything away from the Colts, I just think, the Titans play really, really well at home. And I think that this is going to be a lopsided game, and I think it's going to be in the ballpark of a 28-13 game.
This is an interesting one for me because they're in the same division. They know each other very well. So I think because of that, it's going to be a close game. Regardless, I think it's going to be a close game. But I am going to have to disagree with you here. I think the Colts, that offense, that pass attack specifically, is just unbelievable. And they are the second best rush defense in the grid. So I think they'll be able to force the Titans to be a little bit one-dimensional and come up with some key interceptions or strip sacks. Come away with the victory. I'm going to go Indianapolis 28, Tennessee 20.
I don't know if this partnership is going to work out if you keep disagreeing with me, man. What's that all about? I don't know what's going on.
That's what makes it interesting. It
does. So we're going to go on to the last game for the Wildcard playoffs, and it's actually a game that has already taken place and been completed. It was the Texans on the road against the Baltimore Ravens, my Baltimore Ravens. And the Texans were able to go on the road and get the win. It was a very hard-fought game. The Ravens definitely came out slow to start the game. Texans came out on fire, man. Their defense was all over the quarterback all day long, really made it difficult, not only in the running game, which has been the difference maker for the Baltimore Ravens, especially to help winding the passing game. They just made it difficult all day. So not only were they stopping the run, but they had, I think, 5 or 6 sacks on the day as well. So that defense was just all over the field, making a ton of plays. If they weren't intercepting the ball, they were knocking it down, delivering some hard hits as well. But it was a close game. The Ravens were able to come back in the second half and make it an interesting game. And it came down to a last-second field goal from the Texans after a roughing the passer by Enrique Pollard, who has been out for the last 8 weeks with an injury, his first game back. And he made a boneheaded mistake. Yeah, made a boneheaded mistake late in the game, roughed the passer, gave him an additional 15 yards. So it made the field goal much easier for them. But so they were able to hit the field goal, win 19-16. But with that victory and moving on to the next round where they have to face those Buffalo Bills, which is not going to be easy, especially on the road once again. But they did lose Krishan Gary for the remainder of the playoffs. Even if they made it to the Super Bowl, he would not be able to come back unless they rushed him back, which I don't think is a smart thing to do. But they did lose their star wide receiver in Krishan Gary as well. So that's definitely going to be a big hit there for these Houston Texans moving forward. But they definitely did a great job in this game, like I said, and they took it to the Ravens, man. Defensively, very, very strong, and they were able to come out with the victory.
So if you don't mind me asking, what do you think was the difference in that game? Did you see the 9-7 record and think, we can get by him, and start looking into the next week without really worrying about the game that was at hand?
I think sometimes that can be the case, but known Deca for a while, and he's a wily veteran in more ways than one. But he just, when you face a team like that, especially like I said with the defense, that was the thing that worried me the most was the defense, because our offense has been good, yes, but it hasn't been anything great. Our defense is what has helped us, and they still played a good game. I mean, after the initial touchdown early in the first quarter, they held them to 4 field goals outside of that. So the defense really did their part. We did create a couple of turnovers as well, but like I said, the defense is what really worried me. If we couldn't get the running game going, it was going to make it very, very difficult to get anything going in the passing game as well. And that's definitely what it came down to. So I definitely didn't overlook Deca and his Texans by any means. I don't let records speak for him. He's in the playoffs for a reason. You got to take everybody seriously. I did feel that maybe we had the odds in our favor simply because we had the home field advantage, but it didn't mean anything to him and his team. So congrats to Deca and those Houston Texans, and I wish him luck in the rest of the playoffs.
Yeah, man, I'm rooting for him. In the AFC, I'm really rooting for the Texans. I mean, like you said, Deca's a veteran. It's his first time being in the playoffs this entire cycle. He got in by the skin of his teeth at a 9-7 record, and I'm really praying he could make a little Cinderella story here. Make a run at the title.
Yeah, and it would be really, really fun to watch. And, like you said, you'd love to see that from him. He's really built that team up and made it, something to be scared of. So real quick, before we move on to our next part, I want to ask you, who do you think at the end of the day is going to be the Super Bowl champion this year in the grid?
I think it's the Buffalo Bills. In my opinion, just from start to finish, they've been the most consistent team on both sides of the ball. I mean, they're 15-1 for a reason. And, I mean, if you want to talk numbers, this Buffalo Bills defense has to be one of the best in history of the grid. I mean, only allowed 190 points entire season, which is phenomenal.
Yeah, yep.
But what sticks out to me even more is they forced 71 turnovers. 71 turnovers. 60
one of the
interceptions,
craziest numbers I've ever seen, yeah.
11 fumble recoveries. And I mean, Ronald Darby and Stephon Gilmore had 21 picks combined. That's more than 11 teams in the grid. That's more than a third of the league just from those two players. So, I mean, with that defense and that momentum that they've got coming in, I just think they're going to be tough to beat. I think they're going to cruise through the AFC. But they may run into a challenge in the NFC because the NFC is pretty deep. But I like their chances to win it all.
Yeah.
What about you?
No, and I agree. I hate to do it because, I like to have a little bit of conversation about the topic, but I couldn't agree more, man. The Buffalo Bills, the number of turnovers they've been able to create, if they continue doing that in the playoffs, there's not a team that can beat them. So there's not going to be a team that can, come in and be able to keep up with turning the ball over 3, 4, maybe even 5 times in the game and still continue to get the ball back with enough time to put up some points to keep pace with a pretty decent offense as well. So I think it's going to be the Bills and that are going to win the whole thing as well if they continue to play the way that they do. But I think, like you said, they're going to run through the AFC, I feel. Buffalo, not an easy place to play, the inclement weather, all those things that come into effect in that sense. But I just don't see anyone in the NFC right now that, like you said, it's very, very deep. But I think throughout, the Buffalo Bills has been the best team in the grid this year. So I think that's definitely going to be what it comes down to. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the next topic, and we're going to introduce our very, very special guest here on this episode. It is Matty Live 3K. He's going to go ahead and talk some draft with us, a little bit about some of the guys from this season as well as some guys to look for coming up in the upcoming draft as well. So we're going to go ahead and go over to him. But real quick, before I send it over to him, I have to ask you, Matty, who do you think is going to win the Grid Super Bowl this year?
Man, first of all, thanks for having me. But after those numbers you guys just talked about with the Bills, it'll be hard to go against those guys.
Yeah, and I think that's the consensus amongst all of us, and I don't think it's a bad prediction by any means. But I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you and Z-Star, man. You do some great work as far as blogs and things like that go in the grid, especially covering the rookies in the draft classes and things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you guys, and let's get some insight on what to look for this year.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, Matty Live is our draft guru. He always cooks up some beautiful blogs on the rookies and just their performances the following season. If you want to check those out, check out our Daddy Leagues page. But Matty, I'm glad you're here, man. Just wanted to talk some draft stuff with you.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. Like I said, man, I'm happy to do it, and I'm ready to give you guys the info you need.
Great. Glad to hear it, man. So to get started, I wanted to talk a little bit about the rookies from last year. The guys that have been in this season. Have they maybe played up to their potential, busts, breakout players that you didn't expect? Just wanted to touch on a few guys that you've had your eye on this season.
Okay, well, I've had my eye on pretty much the whole first round of the draft. There has been busts. There have been really, really, really good players that have made very impactful plays for their teams, playoff contenders as well. First off, number 1 pick in the draft, Willie Pollock, lived up to expectations. I think he started off a bit slow, but he ramped it up for Deca and his Texan squad. I think especially after Clowney went down for a few weeks. He finished with 59 tackles, 11 tackles for loss, 7 sacks, 4 forced fumbles. He proved to be a force to be reckoned with. However, the next 3 picks, Max Merritt, the quarterback for the Bengals, Zachary Thielen, the offensive tackle for the Chargers, and Blake Lucina, the quarterback for the Cardinals, their seasons have been kinda iffy. Merritt, as we know with the Bengals, he's been benched for Dalton, but he also regained his starting spot. He's only played 9 games, but he's thrown 28 interceptions, which is an astronomical number. So I'm still on the fence about him. Zachary Thielen, the Chargers first round pick, the offensive tackle. In 16 games he's played, he's allowed 11 sacks. And also Blake Lucina, the 4th pick in the draft, the quarterback for the Cardinals. He finished hurt for the last 3 games, but up until that point, he had 13 touchdowns and 25 interceptions. So there have been some, I guess, I don't want to call them because it's still their first year in the league, but there's been some busts. And also, I think a key note about this particular draft is we've had a lot of great players come from the later rounds. For example,
right, you're always going to find those gems in the second and third round, and that's really what separates you from being one of the top GMs in the league.
Exactly,
just the average.
Mm-hmm. For
really,
example,
first round pick, it's almost a given you're going to get a good player.
Yeah. I mean, it's 50 to me personally. I think it's 50-50 as far as first round pick. You never know. You never know what can happen. There's been some great first round picks. Like a little later in the draft, the Vikings, their receiver Kent Gunn, the offensive rookie of the year for the NFC. He finished with 86 catches. Crazy. Yes, 86 catches, 1,700 yards, and 11 touchdowns. But then, like I said, going to draft picks that were picked later. You have the defensive rookie of the year from the NFC, Copeland, the defensive end for my Packers. Actually, he was a 6th round pick, 25th pick in that round. Finished with 11 and a half sacks to lead all rookies. So it's 50-50. You never know what you're gonna get, but when you find the gems, you just have to groom them, and you just gotta
So if you had to say, who is your most disappointing player and the player that exceeded expectations the most?
Okay. The most disappointing player right now for me has to be the quarterback for the Bengals, Max Merritt, the 2nd overall pick in the draft, and he's had a horrible season. Like I said, 1,700 passing yards, 8 touchdowns, 28 interceptions. You just can't have that from the 2nd pick in the draft. Even though he only played 9 games, but still, you can't have that from the 2nd pick in the draft. And a rookie that exceeded expectations. I mean, like I said, look at Gunn from the Vikings. Nobody knew he was gonna come out with a 1,700-yard performance, 11 touchdowns. But also, my favorite rookie in this draft has to be on the defensive side of the ball, has to be the Broncos middle linebacker that they got, Molden. I think that's what was his last name. He finished the season with 73 tackles, 13 tackle for loss, 3 sacks, and the most impressive stat, he had 9 interceptions. So I would have to give him my award for overall rookie of the year. That kid was he just played out of his mind.
Yeah, he really did. But moving on, though, I want you to discuss the upcoming draft class a little bit with us.
Oh, yeah,
maybe
with
if you can give us a sleeper, somebody that you got your eye on later in the rounds that no one really knows about, maybe, or also the best guy you think is in the draft.
All right, yeah. Well, my sleeper, even though I don't know if you can call a first rounder a sleeper, but my sleeper in this draft has to be I guess you could say he's gonna be a first round pick, but and he's pretty high on the draft board, so I don't know if you can really call him a sleeper, but I really think he's gonna exceed expectations, and that's the wide receiver, Jabari Wilkinson from Alabama. He's like 6'5", 6'6", and I don't think he's getting enough love or getting enough credit as far as in the mocks that I've seen and when people discuss this draft class. But by far the most impressive rookie that I think is going to be in this draft class is actually the Heisman winner, and that's Richie Babineau, the outside linebacker from Michigan State. I think he's hands down the number one pick, and I believe the Chiefs have the number one pick. Him on the opposite side of Justin Houston is gonna be scary for that division. So
yeah, that's a nightmare pass rush right there.
That will be a nightmare pass rush, man. But also, don't sleep on Ben Hendricks. He's the defensive end out of Nebraska. The consensus number one pick. Some mocks have him as number one, but I think Richie Babineau is gonna be the elite star from this particular draft.
And I'm gonna agree with you there. As I'm going through it, I also think that he is the best talent in the draft, and if I had the number one pick, I would definitely pull the trigger on him.
Exactly.
All right, but thank you, Matty Live, for coming on to discuss rookies with us. I'm going to throw it back to the host, Mr. Project Fat.
Yeah, and thank you once again, Maddie. I really appreciate it. It's extremely informative, man. Just kind of looking at it, and like you said, you never know. It's a 50-50 with those guys. Are they going to fit the scheme that they go into? They can have all the talent in the world, but if they don't fit the scheme that you're running with, the ownership has for that player, it's really not going to work out. So thank you once again, man. Really informative information, and we look forward to having you on again here in the future.
Hey, thanks a lot for having me, guys. You guys hold it down and continue to do your thing.
All right. Appreciate
Thanks,
it. So
man, we'll do.
We will do that. And next thing we're going to do is we're going to, one big thing that separates not only the grid but NBL from everybody else, because I'm not here just saying it, but it's the truth. We are the number one league, Madden League on Xbox. But the one thing that really separates us from everybody else is the contributions from its owners in many different ways. We're with Maddie Live, who does a ton of blogs, like I said, a lot of draft coverage, things like that, and he's jumping on here helping us with this show that we're doing. There's a lot of other guys, that really, really active as far as doing, some magazine work, graphical work, also doing blogs, things like that. Just really help the league thrive, and makes us that much different than everybody else. So real quick, what we're going to do is we always talk about these guys in chat and make sure that they know that they're being recognized and the work that they're doing is not going unnoticed. But we're also going to do that here on the show real quick. So I'm going to go ahead and throw it back to Z-Star for a quick second and let him talk about what the current top 5 is and give those guys a quick shout out.
Yeah, man, like you said, on top of gameplay, content contribution is huge here. That's what really separates us from the pack, as you touched on. So I want to give a nice little shout out to our current NBL top 5 call-up list. These guys really have been consistent in all phases, really just great owners of the grid, and we just can't thank them enough. And I'm looking forward to them getting the call up to the big dance. But at number 1, we have Slow Surrender, aka Kyle, the 49ers. Number 2, we have our Eagles user, the Hound. Number 3, we have the Redskins Notch, my man Pete. Number 4, we have the beloved Penny. He's the Jets. And at number 5, we have the Cardinals, Mr. Loaded Lunatic. So like I said, those guys have really been doing an excellent job. Super consistent. That's why they're there on the top 5. So shout out to you guys. Keep doing what you're doing. But I wanted to give a special shout out to our man Jay Gut, who's really been on a tear lately. He's one of the hottest in the grid right now in terms of content. He's really putting out some top-notch stuff. Super active all the time. So his stock is really, really rising, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him in that top 5 sometime soon if he keeps it up. So shout out to you, Jay Gut. We really appreciate you.
Yeah, very, very cool. And I think one of the coolest people on that list, not in the sense of anything else other than the fact that they've really had to work their way back. He was a member of the NBL previously, and he is now back with the grid, working his way back, and that is Slow Surrender. So that's really awesome that he knows what it takes to get there, and he's continuously doing it. Even though he was there once before, he wants to get back, and I really, I appreciate the fact that he's continuing to put in the work to get himself back to that back to the NBL. I'm sorry, and like you said, Jay Gut recently been doing a ton of stuff for the league as well. So congratulations to all those guys. We really appreciate all the work that you guys have been doing. Continue it, and I promise you guys will be to the NBL here very soon, and it will be much worth the wait, since I have been there myself before, so I know from experience. But just once again want to thank you guys for everything that you do. And I think that's going to do it for today. A little bit shorter of a show. We do plan on adding some different things moving forward, so we will continue to look at that, other ways that we can really make this show take off and just have fun with it, man. I think that's what it's mostly about. Just have fun with the show. Make sure we get as many people on here as we possibly can. Just get more people involved, give them an opportunity, to give to the league as much as they can. So I want to thank you, Z-Star, for jumping on with me. I really appreciate you getting in touch with me because I've been wanting to do this for a little while, and I'm excited to have you as my co-host moving forward.
Absolutely, Fat. I'm looking forward to getting back on here and doing it again.
All right, and that's going to be it for us today, guys. Make sure you stay tuned for the next show, which should be sometime after the postseason. We'll probably talk about the postseason and our champion as well as the draft. Try and get something out before the draft as well. So stay tuned for that, and we will get some continue to get some new people on here. If you guys are interested in joining the show, make sure you either message myself or Z-Star, let us know, and we can see what we can do to get you on the show. So thank you guys for tuning in. I really appreciate it. We'll be back next time.